Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite home of legends and glory, nation of glory. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's filled with fire, strength, and redemption. The story of a man who walked through flames literally and metaphorically to become a symbol of power, pain, and perseverance. Yes, we're talking about Glenn Thomas Jacobs, the man the world knows better as Kane. When we hear the word Kane, our minds immediately light up with memories of red lights, ominous music, and a towering figure walking toward the ring with that slow, unstoppable stride. But behind the mask, behind the monstrous persona, lies the story of a humble, intelligent, and deeply driven man who turned fiction into legacy and fear into admiration. Glenn Jacobs was born on April 26, 1967, in Torrejón de Ardoz, Spain, where his father was stationed with the U.S. Air Force. From an early age, Glenn was larger than life, not just in size, but in curiosity and spirit. His family moved back to the United States, and he grew up in the heartland of Missouri, far from the glitz of Hollywood or the bright lights of wrestling arenas. Growing up, Glenn wasn't the scary monster we saw on WE screens. He was quiet, kind, and thoughtful, a boy who loved sports, books, and exploring ideas. Standing over 6 feet tall in his teens, he was naturally drawn to athletics, especially basketball and football. But it was wrestling, the art of storytelling through strength and character, that would eventually call to him. In the late 1980s, after finishing college with a degree in English literature from Northeast Missouri State University, Glenn found himself drawn into the world of professional wrestling. He trained hard, learned the ropes literally, and began his journey across small wrestling promotions, often wrestling for little pay, sometimes even sleeping in his car. Those were the days when passion was his only paycheck. He started under different ring names: Angus King, Doomsday, and later, Unabomb. Each character was a step closer to the legend he would become. But the early years were not easy. He faced rejection after rejection, being told that he was too big, too slow, or too awkward to make it big. Yet Glenn never gave up. He kept working, improving, watching tapes, studying legends like The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, and Bret Hart, learning what made audiences care. His big break came in the mid-90s when he signed with the World Wrestling Federation, now known as WE. At first, his characters didn't click. You might remember the infamous Isaac Yankem DDS, a villainous dentist character that fans didn't quite buy. It was campy, strange, and far from the fearsome legend Kane would become. But behind the scenes, Glenn's professionalism and dedication made an impression on WE executives. They knew he had something special: the strength, the presence, the discipline. Then came 1997. The year everything changed. WE was entering its legendary Attitude Era, a time of chaos, rebellion, and unforgettable characters. It was during this period that Glenn Jacobs was reborn as Kane. The build-up was cinematic. For months, fans heard whispers about The Undertaker's dark past, about a brother he thought had died in a fire. Then, at Bad Blood in Your House, the lights went out, the arena turned red, and there he was, the 7-foot monster, tearing the door off hell in a cell. That moment became one of the most iconic debuts in wrestling history. The world had just met Kane. From that day, Kane was unstoppable. He was darkness, power, and vengeance all rolled into one. Fans feared him, yet couldn't look away. His rivalry and later partnership with The Undertaker became the stuff of legend. Together, they were known as the Brothers of Destruction, two forces who could dominate any tag team in their path. But Kane wasn't just about destruction. As time passed, Glenn Jacobs showed a rare versatility. He could be terrifying one moment and hilariously entertaining the next. Whether he was setting opponents on fire or doing comedy segments with wrestlers like Daniel Bryan, Glenn made it all work. His ability to adapt made him one of the most respected figures in the WE locker room. And that respect wasn't just about his in-ring work. Behind the scenes, Glenn was known as one of the kindest and most intelligent people in the business. While many wrestlers live the wild life of fame and excess, Glenn was thoughtful, grounded, and always reading, always learning. He studied economics, politics, and philosophy in his spare time. While others chased spotlight, Glenn chased knowledge. Over his career, Kane captured numerous titles, from world championships to tag team gold. But perhaps his most impressive record was his consistency. He competed in more than 1,700 matches in WE, at one point holding the record for the most matches in the company's history. That's dedication, resilience, and pure love for the craft. And let's not forget his unforgettable moments, setting the Undertaker's casket on fire, unmasking himself to reveal a tormented, scarred man, teaming with X-Pac, feuding with Triple H, and participating in countless Royal Rumbles, including setting a record for eliminations that stood for years. But like all great stories, there's more to Glenn Jacobs than the character he played. Behind Kane's terrifying mask was a man deeply passionate about helping others. After decades of thrilling millions of fans, Glenn stepped away from the ring to begin a new chapter, one that shocked many: politics. In 2018, Glenn Jacobs ran for mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. Some thought it was a publicity stunt. But those who knew him weren't surprised. He had always been deeply involved in community issues, advocating for freedom, personal responsibility, and economic opportunity. His campaign was not about fame, it was about service. And the people saw that. He won. The monster from WE became Mayor Glenn Jacobs. The same man who once ruled the ring with fire, now led a real community with compassion and intellect. As mayor, Glenn focused on improving education, promoting business growth, and ensuring government transparency. He brought the same discipline and focus he had shown in wrestling into his public service. But Glenn never forgot where he came from. Even while serving as mayor, he made special WE appearances, always with a warm smile behind the scenes and a fiery entrance for the fans. That balance between legend and leader is what made his story so inspiring. You see, Kane's story isn't just about wrestling. It's about evolution. About how a man can play a monster on television and still be a role model in real life. About how determination, humility, and intelligence can take you from the wrestling ring to City Hall. Glenn once said in an interview, "It's easy to get caught up in the character. But at the end of the day, you have to remember who you really are." Those words carry weight. Because Glenn Jacobs never let the fame define him. He used it to inspire, to teach, to give back. And let's not forget how beloved he still is among fans. Even today, when that familiar red light glows and the first notes of Kane's theme song hit, the crowd roars. Because Kane wasn't just a villain. He was a symbol of endurance. He was the monster we loved to fear and the man we grew to respect. Over time, Glenn also became a mentor to younger wrestlers. He shared his wisdom, his experience, and his humility. Many current WE stars credit him for helping them navigate the challenges of fame and performance. Because Glenn knew better than anyone that the mask you wear doesn't define you, your actions do. Away from wrestling and politics, Glenn Jacobs is also a husband and father. He's been married to his wife, Crystal, for decades, and together they've built a life of stability and kindness, away from the chaos of fame. That quiet strength, that ability to stay grounded is part of what makes him so admirable. And yes, Kane will always remain one of WE's greatest characters. His storylines may have been dark, filled with fire and brimstone, but the man behind the mask always shined bright with integrity. Fans around the world remember him for different reasons: the entrance, the choke slam, the mask, the brotherhood with the Undertaker, but everyone agrees on one thing: Kane was unforgettable. Even now, as time passes and new stars rise, Kane's legacy remains unshakable. He represents a golden era of wrestling when storytelling was raw, emotional, and larger than life. Every time a new wrestler steps through the curtain, they're following in the footsteps of giants like him. And that's the beauty of Glenn Jacobs' journey. He started as a kid with a dream, faced rejection after rejection, endured characters that didn't work, and finally found a role that would make him immortal in the eyes of fans. Then, instead of clinging to fame, he reinvented himself once again, not as a monster, but as a man of the people. When we think of Kane, we think of strength. But Glenn Jacobs reminds us that true strength is not in muscles or fire, it's in discipline, compassion, and the courage to evolve. He's living proof that no matter where life takes you, you can always rise from the ashes and build something greater. From the fiery pits of storylines to the calm chambers of public office, Glenn Jacobs has lived many lives. Each one with purpose. Each one with dignity. He's the kind of man who inspires others to chase their passions while staying true to themselves. And maybe that's why people still listen when he speaks. Because when Kane talks, people remember the fire, but when Glenn Jacobs speaks, people feel the wisdom. His story is a reminder that every mask we wear in life, whether it's for a job, a role, or an expectation, eventually comes off. What matters is who we are underneath. So, to every dreamer out there, every fan who grew up watching Kane walk through hellfire, this story isn't just about a wrestling legend. It's about the power of reinvention. It's about never letting your failures define you, and never letting your success change your heart. Glenn Jacobs showed us that you can be both the monster in the ring and the hero in real life. You can entertain millions and still serve your community with humility. You can wear the mask and still be authentic. And that's why his legacy goes beyond WWE. It's why he's loved not only by wrestling fans, but by people who value resilience, intelligence, and kindness. So next time you see those red lights, hear that fire ignite, and remember Kane's slow, powerful march to the ring, think of the man behind it. The man who turned a nightmare into a legacy. Because Glenn Jacobs didn't just play a character called Kane. He embodied what it means to fight for success, for respect, for purpose. And that, my friends, is the real story. Thank you for staying with us on this emotional and inspiring journey. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more legends like this, stories that ignite your passion and remind you of the greatness within, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and of course, subscribe to Nation of Glory. Because here, every story shines bright. Every legend lives forever. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and always remember, the fire may fade, but true glory never dies.